If you're roasting coffee at home and you're not satisfied with the results, it might be time to adjust your roasting profile. In this fourth installment of my coffee roasting profile series, I'll share a method for doing just that. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the browning phase from dry end to first crack and explore how adjustments during this stage can impact the flavor of your coffee. Welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. If you're new to my channel, thanks for watching. My name is Mike, and I've been sharing my home coffee roasting journey here on this channel for almost 3 years, covering basics like how to roast, coffee roasting reviews, coffee roasting concepts, all the while doing full roasts on many different types of coffee roasters. Some of my topics are for beginners, and sometimes we dive a little deep. Today we're going to dive into the middle phase of the coffee roast, often called the browning phase. This part of the roasting process is where the magic starts to happen. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I would encourage you to watch my Secret Sauce of Coffee Roasting playlist, which covers the basics of roasting coffee at home, and then come back and watch this series. Experts like Rob Host, Scott Rayo, and Joe Morocco have identified 3 different segments of the coffee roasting profile, and these are the phases. The first phase is drying phase. This is where we begin applying heat to the green coffee. Moisture begins to leave the beans and they turn yellow. And this takes place during the first 3 to 6 minutes of the roast. The second phase is the browning phase, where the coffee gets hot enough so the compounds which make up the seed, they begin to break down and flavors begin to develop. This is the phase that we're going to be focusing on today. The third phase is the development phase, where the coffee beans have completed the browning phase and reached first crack, and now continue flavor development until we decide to end the roasting process and drop the coffee. I've included a list of several learning resources that have helped me learn how to roast coffee. I would encourage you to see the links in the description below and check them out. What I've learned from the books, videos, and professional roasting workshops is that coffee roasting isn't cut and dry. We're dealing with the coffee seed, a truly amazing agricultural product that when roasted offers endless possibilities for flavors, all of which are impacted by how we apply heat over time during our roast. This is why we put together a roasting plan. Taste the coffee, take notes, and then tweak the plan. Roast again, taste, take notes, and so on. I had an opportunity to visit Tim Wendelboe's cafe while visiting Oslo, Norway last fall. It was a wonderful experience. The coffee was really awesome, it was excellent, and I had a chance to watch Tim from a distance cup coffee in his lab. He and an associate were tasting, taking notes, and discussing their experiences. It was really a learning experience for me to see. So why is the browning phase so important? From the time coffee beans turn yellow, complex reactions begin to take place in the compound of the bean. These reactions multiply, developing flavors. Amino acids along with sugars exposed to the roasting environment begin the browning process and caramelization, and these Maillard reactions continue and change, creating new reactions, which in turn create new flavors. There's so much going on within this browning phase as hundreds of organic compounds multiply, forming new flavors. If all of these reactions are happening, what affects which flavors I'll taste in the cup? The rate of temperature increase over time affects heat penetration into the seed and these reactions. As moisture evaporation continues and the reactions take place, sweetness and acidity blossom. Like all good things, excess spoils the lot. A middle phase that lingers too long allows the reactions to progress and mutate into dull flavors. Perceived sweetness begins to turn into more bitter notes. Acidity moves from clean, bright clarity to something jammy and eventually something undesirable. Okay, so let's talk specifics. I used the Nucleus Link coffee roaster to roast a Honduran green coffee from the Captain's Coffee, and I used 2 different roasting profiles. By the way, this is the same coffee that I used in my other profile series videos. The link makes it easy to create and customize a roast profile. There are several really good videos that go into detail about how to use the link, how to create custom profiles, and a couple of YouTube channels that come to mind that you should check out that highlight the Nucleus link are the Captain's Coffee and Roast Rebels. And of course, you can go to the Nucleus Link YouTube channel to learn all about the features of this awesome sample roaster. I want to thank GH Grinding and Brewing Solutions for letting me borrow the Nucleus Link and sharing my experiences with you. I'll have a link in the description so you can learn more about the link. They are the authorized distributors here in the United States, so check that out. So here's how I set up my profiles using the Nucleus Link coffee roaster. First, I need to determine the density weight of the coffee. This is something I do with all of my green coffee. My previous profile series video highlighted this process using the Link Profiler app, so I would encourage you to check that out if you're interested. I use the Link Special Density Tube to help me determine the correct weight, which will allow me to identify the coffee density in the Link Profiler. The Link wants to know what I'm roasting for, and there's really 4 options. There's cupping, omni, filter, and espresso. So I select one of those, and now I can complete the profiler form by selecting the tube version, the density weight, process type, the voltage that I'm using here in my house, and also the varietal. Once completed, I have my number, and this number is my first crack temperature. As mentioned earlier, I'm doing 2 roasts using the same first crack temperature. Roast number 1 is an Omni roast, and roast number 2 is a Filter A roast. Now that I have this information, I can choose to enter it directly into the Link roaster, or I can use the Link Studio software interface on my computer. And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use my computer and send it to the roaster. Alright, now I've set my development percentage to be 13%, confirming this as a 100-gram roast, and then I start the roast. Alright, so I did this for both roasts. Roast number 1, the Omni roast, and roast number 2, Filter A roast. The biggest difference between these 2 roasts was the length of the middle phase. In roast number 1, the Link cranked up the heat at the beginning of the roast and then started to slow things down during the browning phase, making the browning phase last a bit longer. Roast number 2, on the other hand, started with a little less heat in the beginning, but didn't back off the heat as much as the roast progressed, and it caused the browning phase to be a little bit shorter. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Despite both roasts hitting first crack at the same temperature and having the same development percentage, their first crack time and ending times were different. Because of this, they ended up tasting quite different. Roast number 2 gave off this woody, slightly sweet aroma while brewing it, and then it had a big, fluffy body with a hint of apple acidity. But towards the end, things got a bit watery and sour. Roast number 1, though, had a sweeter and fruitier aroma while brewing. Sipping the coffee, there was more clarity, sweetness, and complexity compared to roast number 2. It had a delightful balance with a gripping acidity and flashes of sweetness popping up unexpectedly. The clarity and complexity just kept unfolding with every sip. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? Well, I have a few important conclusions and comments. Takeaway number 1. The amount of time spent roasting in the middle phase will impact how our coffee tastes. Based on the example and my past experiences with the browning phase, I'm suggesting that we should experiment with different lengths of time in this phase. Takeaway number 2. How fast or how slow we roast will impact the taste. James Hoffman says, the roast of a coffee is a product of this final color of the coffee bean, light or dark, and the time it took to get to that color, fast or slow. So to expand on that thought, compare the beans from roast number 1 that I did and roast number 2. They looked very similar in color. Check it out. The ending temperature was almost identical, 205.7 versus 205.2. The difference was the speed of the roast, which in turn gave us more time in the middle phase for a longer roast. Takeaway number 3. Changing our middle phase will force us to control our roasters. Many of us are on autopilot. We do the same roast style every time, the same profile. We might not know where to begin. So consider changing your initial heat setting on your charge temperature, for example. This will change your dry phase, which in turn will give you an opportunity to apply your heat differently in the browning phase. Okay, takeaway number 4. Different types of coffee might require different approaches. We may need to change up our total roast time, or roast levels, or how we want to balance our cups. Use the concepts from takeaway number 1 through 3 to help you experiment and try something different. I've spent almost 3 years sharing my home coffee roasting journey here on YouTube. Other than my videos, I offer resources to help home coffee roasters grow in their hobby. I'm currently adding content to my extras page at my Buy Me a Coffee site. Some are free, including the roasting profile worksheet, where there's been hundreds of those downloaded, and a couple of artisan profiles that I've shared as well. I also offer a 1-hour one-on-one Zoom call, which you can purchase, where I help home roasters with whatever they need related to their hobby. I've roasted online with some, I've analyzed coffee profiles with others, and taught basic roasting concepts to quite a few home coffee roaster enthusiasts. So if you're interested in any of this, I'll have a link in the description and you can check that out. Now I'd love to hear what you think about what I've covered here in this video. Have you experimented by changing the length of the time of your browning phase? What happened? And what did you learn? How did you accomplish this? Did you change your charge temperature? Did you modify your heat settings? Change your batch size? Share what happened. Roasting coffee is as much of an art as it is a science, and every little tweak that we do can lead us to a whole new world of flavors. So keep on roasting, keep on tasting, and most importantly, have fun with it. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a great week roasting, and we'll see you next time.